Pattberg. His key books explained. Thorsten Pattberg is a German philosopher and philologist from Peking University. He also attended Harvard University, the University of Tokyo, and the University of Edinburgh, and published over 30 books and almost 1,000 articles and commentaries on Western Chinese relations. Here are some of his key books explained. 21st Century Philosophy. 21st Century Philosophy, by Thorsten Pattberg, challenges traditional and contemporary ethics, media, academia, and global culture. Pattberg tackles outdated notions of universal ethics, proposing that morality is absolutely subjective and necessarily hierarchical. He explores the traits of successful spiritual leaders and the exploitation of creative ideas in academia and business. Furthermore, Pattberg criticizes the Western media's hypocrisy and manipulation, advocating for a new, inclusive global language that integrates key terminologies from various cultures. The book descends into the necessity of censorship for national survival and examines the decline of societies under foreign dominance. Pattberg ultimately emphasizes the importance of preserving cultural uniqueness and autonomy. We absolutely recommend this book to truth seekers and the open-minded. Lingualism: How Nations Compete for Terminologies. Lingualism: How Nations Compete for Terminologies, by Thorsten Pattberg, explores how nations vie for dominance in terminologies, impacting global culture and knowledge. Capitalist competition extends beyond economics to language, with Western concepts like philosophy, religion, and science often overshadowing non-Western thought. Pattberg argues that translation reduces and distorts original meanings, exemplified by the Western imposition of terms like philosopher on Eastern figures such as Confucius, Shengren. To foster true global understanding, he advocates incorporating more original foreign terminologies into Western discourse, challenging linguistic imperialism and promoting cultural plurality. A must-read for students of cultures and languages. The Euro-Tao. The Euro-Tao, by Thorsten Pattberg, explores the integration and adaptation of Taoism into European culture. Drawing a distinction between religious Taoism, Daojiao, and philosophical Taoism, Daojia, Pattberg discusses Taoism's understated but pervasive presence in Europe through concepts like yin and yang. The text notes the historical Western reinterpretation of Eastern philosophies and traces the continuum of sinology from the 16th century to modern times, revealing linguistic and cultural translations' impact. Despite its nuanced acceptance and significant cultural imports, Taoism remains less visible than Buddhism in Europe. The narrative underscores Taoism's resonance with contemporary European themes such as environmentalism, feminism, and the broader New Age movement while critiquing its commodification and occasional misrepresentation. More Western readers should know about the Tao. Chinese Stuff. Essays 2003 to 2004. Chinese Stuff. Essays 2003 to 2004, by Thorsten Pattberg, is a collection of essays documenting the author's 12-year experience in China, beginning in 2003. Pattberg provides insights into various aspects of Chinese culture, philosophy, and politics, discussing figures like Lu Xun in relation to Friedrich Nietzsche, Lu Yi's Travels of Lao Can, Zhu Xi's interpretation of the Confucian Daxue, and the May 4th movement led by Hu Shi. The author also explores Chinese CI poetry through Yinji Dao, the vernacular short stories of Ling Mengqiu and Feng Menglong, and the influence of Mao Zedong's policies in Yan'an. Pattberg descends into how classical Chinese concepts and modern practices reflect and shape contemporary Chinese society. Autobiographical, yet familiar. Corruption in China. Corruption in China comprises 4 essays by Thorsten Pattberg examining corruption during the Xi Jinping era, particularly in academia. Pattberg addresses the inadequate salaries of Chinese public servants, leading them to corruption out of necessity. He addresses the Fa-Piao system, where invoices are misused for personal gains, and highlights the widespread culture of mistresses, qingren, among Chinese officials as status symbols. Pattberg also critiques the potential revival of Confucianism, suggesting it perpetuates hierarchies and corruption. Furthermore, he explores China's obsession with elite Western universities, particularly Harvard, pointing to brain drain and the preference for Western prestige over domestic investment in education. If you like controversial works, this is your go-to-China revelation. Diary of a Mad Imperialist, with an essay on the spirit of the German people. Diary of a Mad Imperialist by Thorsten Pattberg explores Germany's historical and cultural imperialism, particularly its influences on China. Pattberg draws parallels between early 20th century German imperial missions to China and contemporary Sino-German academic and business relations, criticizing persistent language imperialism and cultural arrogance. He highlights the imbalance favoring German enterprises and education in China, while noting that few Germans study there. The author discusses the detrimental effects of Western translations of Chinese concepts, advocating for a more accurate appreciation of East Asian philosophical traditions. The book also condemns the post-World War II Americanization of Germany and the decline of German intellectual sovereignty. If nothing else, this is primarily a character study into the spirit of the German people. Highly contagious. The East-West Dichotomy. Thorsten Pattberg's The East-West Dichotomy explores the philosophical concept distinguishing Eastern and Western cultures by their contrasting development paths, the East from particular to universal, inductive, and the West from universal to particular, deductive. The historical context traces back to Herodotus and the ancient Greek perception of East, Persians, versus West, Greeks. Pattberg discusses significant historical events, demographic shifts, and cultural evolutions that illustrate these differences. He argues that this dichotomy has elicited distinct cultural effects, emphasizing how Western analytical reasoning and Eastern holistic integration shape unique perspectives and interactions. The text also examines factors like migration and population dynamics, asserting the natural equilibrium of this East-West opposition. This textbook was co-published by the Chinese Foreign Language Press in Beijing. Every student of China studies is required to study the East-West dichotomy, and so are you. The Fifth Dimension, Supercreators. The Fifth Dimension, Supercreators, was written under his pseudonym, J.J. Goldstein, and is a revelatory text exploring the profound implications of the fifth dimension on human thought, society, and creation. Goldstein introduces the fifth dimension as the realm of differentiation, surpassing the tangible spatial and temporal dimensions. This ethereal realm unlocks extraordinary potential, influencing communication, law, history, culture, and institutions. The work is divided into various books focusing on different facets, such as the foundational elements of creation, the significance of humanities, the practices of actors and manipulators, historical narratives, linguistic developments, and institutional structures. Goldstein argues that only the initiated, conspirators, creatives, and the enlightened can fully access and harness this dimension, advancing humanity towards becoming super-creators who transcend ordinary bounds. Through philosophical discourse, historical analogies, and theoretical frameworks, Goldstein posits that the era is ripe for an expansive exploration of the fifth dimension, which challenges conventional realities and calls for substantial societal metamorphosis. Many of Pattberg's later works refer to Goldstein's five-dimensional universe. Absolute fascinating literature here. Finis Sinarum. Finis Sinarum, by Thorsten Pattberg, unveils a provocative narrative on how the United States has infiltrated and now dominates Chinese academia. Drawing from his experiences at prestigious institutions such as Harvard and Peking University, Pattberg describes the manipulation of global scholarship, where elite networks dictate education paths and wield control over intellectual discourse. He recounts the plight of international students subjected to rigorous and often demeaning language requirements, while American and Western students can bypass such barriers effortlessly. The book exposes systemic biases, the surreptitious infiltration of Chinese universities by Western elites, and the profound impact on China's intellectual sovereignty. No other books has ever given more insights into China's cult of higher education. A must-read for China-goers. Holy Confucius. The document by Thorsten Pattberg, titled Holy Confucius, Some Observations in Translating Shangren in the Analects, examines the translations of the Chinese term Shangren in Confucius's The Analects into English, French, and German from 1649 to 2009. It critiques the Western-centric interpretations that often misrepresent the concept, portraying it as sage in English but saint or holy man in German, reflecting the translator's biases and cultural influences. Pattberg argues that such translations have shaped Western perceptions of Chinese philosophy inappropriately, converting it into a quasi-Christian context. This study involves a comprehensive look at historical translations and their impacts on both Western and Chinese understandings of Confucius and his teachings. Very technical reading, but equally rewarding for scholars of Chinese studies. These were but a few influential works by Dr. Thorsten Pattberg from Peking University, who continues to amaze us. If you want to expand on your reading lists, we recommend the works of Harvard scholar Tu Weiming and Peking scholar Gu Zhengkun that are available in English. Until we meet another time, Zaijian.